Do not want to forget him.
He's pretty smart because he went to Stanford. All right, moving on. We are going to Maryland.
I love Maryland.
Baltimore Ravens. Who doesn't love Maryland and crab cakes? So last week we're like, all right, which Ravens team, the same conversation we just had about the Dolphins, which Ravens team is going to show up from one week to the next? And in preparing for this game, I was all in on the Lions like everyone else. You can memorize the talking points at this point. They scored 14 or more points in the last 4 games. The big issue with their defense was giving up nothing in the run. They literally had given up 388 yards in the run game over the course of the season, which was historically great. They were getting after the quarterback by rushing 4. All the things that would make you concerned if you were the Ravens, especially since the Ravens breach historically find ways to lose games in the fourth quarter in new and exciting ways. This game was over shortly after kickoff. I think it was a 7-play, 75-yard drive or whatever. They scored a touchdown, the Ravens did, and that was a wrap. So, as Harry notes in the rundown, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can read it here. Only the Ravens can beat the Ravens. Is that correct?
I mean, I don't think that's correct. We saw them lose to the Steelers 2 weeks ago, your Steelers, and only score 10 points, and that's the...
Yeah, but wait,
feels
let me stop
feels
you.
like we put that on the Ravens. I mean, I don't know.
You know how they lost that game? They dropped 27 passes.
And Lamar threw like an interception.
And drop passes happen, just like injuries happen, or whatever you put it on.
But drop passes are like, that's beating yourself.
All right, let's go. Let Breach make his point.
But you still only scored 10 points, so maybe you scored 17. It's still, we're talking about a team that scored 10 points 2 weeks ago. That's my point. No, but I mean, I've said the Ravens are the best team in the AFC North right now. I picked the Ravens to win the AFC North this year, and I had the Bengals and Ravens in my AFC title game in my preseason predictions. So I have been all about the Ravens all season. I think this is a good team. They finally put it all together. And, obviously there was going to be some adjustment period with Todd Monken's offense, and it looks like it took exactly 7 weeks for this thing to get adjusted to, because Lamar Jackson was out there just slinging the ball. His receivers weren't dropping passes. And now that we know how scary the Ravens offense can be, if this is what they are going forward, if they consistently do this, they might put up 40 next week because they're playing the Cardinals. So if we see this for a 2 or 3 week period, then I'll be convinced that, bam, Lamar Jackson has mastered this offense. But again, if you forget about the Steelers game, they only scored 19 against the Colts. So there's been some games. I mean, even last week against the Titans in London, they scored 24. They kicked 6 field goals. So the offense has been getting better every week. And if they consistently do this, then this team is scary because they play the type of football they can run the ball. And if Lamar Jackson's thrown for 357 yards, that's equally scary. So yeah, I think the Ravens have the potential to be one of the most dynamic teams in the AFC. I'd probably put them at number 2 in the AFC right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. So
what's interesting, and I actually only noticed this because fellow podcast host Katie Mox is in a fantasy league. We were texting about a trade that she got offered in an expert league, and I won't rat out who the expert is that offered it. Was like trying to trade with her, but he's trying to acquire a Ravens receiver in the process. And I was like, man, that's kind of like it was just bizarre. But I looked at it, and the Ravens' schedule coming up is so conducive to this offense exploding. They have the Cardinals next week. Cardinals 31st defense coming in this week by DVOA. Very bad defense. Tremendous defense. The Ravens should be able to throw the ball at will against them. Seattle, number 1 run defense in football. We should see the Seahawks. We should see the Ravens be able to throw against them. The Browns, of course, very good defense, so that'll be a low-scoring divisional game. The Bengals the week after that could just turn into a shootout. We've seen those Bengals-Ravens games explode before. And then they're at the Chargers, who, you could end up in a 41-40 game or something like that. And I think that's interesting, the schedule, because when you look at what the Ravens did in this particular game, Lamar just in an almost borderline immaculate game, right? I mean, 155.8 passer rating, 21-27, 357 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, ran another touchdown in, didn't have to run much, only 9 times for 36 yards, distributed the ball to a ton of dudes. Gus Edwards was the leading receiver with 80 receiving yards. He was on 1 catch. 6 targets for Zay Flowers, four catches, 75 yards. 6 targets for Mark Andrews, 4 catches, 63 yards, 2 scores. And then 7 targets, 5 catches, and 49 yards for Odell Beckham. Like, this is sort of what we thought we might be getting from this Todd Monken offense, is a nice, more even distribution, a more aggressive passing game, the ability to put the ball down the field, let Lamar look like this. Man, if you can find him 10-1 or higher for MVP, go bet that. I think I saw 8-1 on DraftKings earlier. He was like 15 to 20-1 in that range before the week. This schedule is conducive for the Ravens offense to really put up big numbers. And I think Lamar, especially with the Eagles beating the Dolphins, Lamar could be the MVP favorite in 3 weeks.